Let me back up a second, because if you just saw what happened out at my ranch, you'd probably be scratching your head, wondering how in the world things got that far. Picture this. I'm standing in a cloud of dust, boots planted in the hard-pan Texas dirt, staring down the county's queen of beige herself, Karen Dane, as she screeches about bylaws and boundaries like she's the empress of the free world. She's got two deputies at her side. One looks fresh out of the academy. The other has that tired look like he's been through 3 wars and a half-baked divorce, and she's waving a manila folder around like it's the 10 Commandments. But the real punchline? She's trying to have me arrested. On my own land. Yeah, that happened. But you know what? Let me start this from the top, 'cause every good story starts with a notice on the gate, a hot cup of coffee, and trouble you didn't ask for. I'm Mark Thomas. Folks round here know me as a rancher, a fixer of things, sometimes a stubborn old mule, but mostly just a man trying to keep 100 years of family sweat from slipping away. My life comes in 2 flavors, not enough rain or too much government. Sometimes, if I'm real lucky, I get both on the same day. Now, Karen Dane, she's the president of the Lundy's Landing County Homeowners Association. Picture a woman in a blinding red pantsuit, hair sprayed to within an inch of its life, looking at my old red barn like it's personally offended her sensibilities. To her, that barn is a blight. My cattle are a public nuisance. My fence, well, she treats it like a middle finger in her face. Her world is plastic fences, copy-paste houses, and lawns so manicured they look like fake grass under a microscope. And my ranch? My ranch is the fly in her Chardonnay. The whole mess started, as it always seems to, with a piece of paper. I came home one night, dusty, sunburned, half dead from hauling hay, only to find a notice duct taped to my front gate so thick it could have held up a tornado. It was an official violation of Lundy's Landing Architectural Guideline 14B. My barn's red color, apparently, wasn't HOA approved. Now the kicker? I'm not even in her HOA. Never have been. The Thomas Ranch predates that subdivision by decades, maybe even a full century. My granddad built that barn before most of those beige castles were even a sketch in a developer's pad. I read the notice, I laughed, and then, true story, I used it to start a fire in my burn barrel. That's what we call rural recycling. Figured that'd be the end of it. But being right doesn't always mean you'll be left alone, especially with folks like Karen. I should have known. About a week later, I'm out mending a fence when I hear this shrill voice, cutting through the morning air like a hot knife through butter. I look up, and there she is, Karen, flanked by those 2 deputies. The young one's still figuring out how to work his radio. The other, Deputy Cruz, has a face so worn he looks like he's been waiting all his life for retirement. And Karen? She's pointing at me like I just committed grand larceny. That man right there is willfully defying a legal compliance order, she hollers. I want him arrested for trespassing. On my own land. I swear you can't make this stuff up. My girlfriend, Samantha, is behind me, phone in hand, little red light on. She always records when Karen's around. Smile for the camera, Karen. Sam calls out, sweet as pie but sharp as a tack. Try not to look like you're about to call the county's manager. Karen's eyes narrow so hard I half expect laser beams. You are interfering with an official proceeding, she snaps. I could have you fined. I'll add it to the tab. Now, I'm not a yeller by nature. My daddy taught me, when folks get louder, you get quieter. Drives him nuts. So I just leaned against my post, arms crossed, and kept my voice steady. Ma'am, as my lawyer said in that letter, my ranch isn't, and has never been, part of your association. This fence right here? It's the line. You're on your side, I'm on mine. It's that simple. Deputy Cruz, bless him, gives this tired sigh, like his coffee ran out hours ago. Ma'am, he's right. We checked the maps. Thomas Ranch is agricultural, predates your development, and isn't under your HOA. We don't have jurisdiction here. You'd think that would be the end, right? Oh, buddy, you don't know Karen. She pulls out a binder, thick enough to kill a raccoon, and flips to a page with a dramatic snap. According to the preliminary annexation filings from 2005, this parcel was designated for future residential integration. My bylaws allow me to enforce aesthetic cohesion in preparation for that integration. His barn is an affront to community standards. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Aesthetic cohesion? Karen, it's a barn. What, you want it beige? Maybe it'll disappear into the background of all your conformity. She glares, missing the joke entirely. Precisely. And another thing. Your truck is a commercial vehicle. It cannot be visible from the road. And those chickens, absolutely forbidden livestock. Sam pans her camera. Mark, she's got you, she whispers. The chickens look dangerous today. She zooms in on a yawning hen. I bite back a grin. Yeah, they're plotting to install a non-compliant mailbox next. Finally, I turn to the deputies. Gentlemen, is there a crime here, or are we just brainstorming? Deputy Cruz looks exhausted. No, Mr. Thomas. There's no crime. Ma'am, this is civil. You'll have to take it to court. Karen's face goes from angry to outright furious. Her lipstick looks tighter than her skin. This is unacceptable. If you won't do your job, I will. I'll see this ranch condemned. I'll see a neighborhood where your ugly red barn stands. This is your final warning. She spins and storms off, right to her golf cart, which is, irony of ironies, parked illegally on the grass. The younger deputy just shrugs and follows. Cruz lingers, tips his hat. Sorry for the circus, Mark. Not your fault, I tell him. You're just the ringmaster she dragged along. He manages a grim little smile. Just be careful. She's got more fight in her than a cornered badger. Good call filming. Sam pipes up, footage or it didn't happen. And she's right. We watched Karen zoom away in that little cart, sounding like a mad hornet. But the piece felt thin. Karen's threat, about having my ranch condemned, wasn't just a bluff. It was heavy, ugly. She wanted my home, my whole family's story, for the sake of uniformity. All for beige. Sam is reviewing her footage, frowning. She's clever, she says. Preliminary annexation, future integration. She's been digging. She's not just winging it, Mark. I spit into the dirt, making a tiny mud puddle. Let her dig. The deed is ironclad. Sam's playful spark is gone, replaced with real worry. She said she'd use every tool at her disposal. I don't think paper fines are the only thing she's got in mind. I had no idea just how right she was. Next morning, sun comes up, rooster crows, world feels normal. But a threat like that doesn't just dry up with the dew. Every car that drives by, I'm glancing up, half expecting her golf cart to show up again. The feeling of being watched, that's the first thing a bully takes from you. Your peace. While I'm out working fence, Sam turns our kitchen table into a command center. Laptop open, HOA bylaws spread out, cross-referencing state codes. She's a research hound, could fall into an internet rabbit hole and climb out with a handful of gold. Okay, she calls. I read their whole charter. It's a masterpiece of vague threats. They can call anything a violation. Garden gnome, too happy? Violation. Flag too flaggy? Violation. But it all comes down to one thing. You gotta actually be in the HOA. Which I'm not. I say, wrestling barbed wire. Which you're not, she confirms. But that future integration clause is real. It was in the developer plan. Problem is, the county rejected that plan. They wanted to keep this area rural. She's enforcing the ghost of a bad idea. That should make you feel better, but Sam trails off. But it doesn't, because it means she's willing to twist history and law to get her way. This isn't about rules, it's about grabbing land. My 100 acres are just a blank canvas for more beige boxes in her mind. The other shoe drops 2 days later. I'm walking the north pasture, checking a new calf. The herd's restless, bunched around the water troughs, which are nearly empty. That's not just unusual, it's dangerous. The valve's barely dribbling. Something's blocking the flow. I trace the line back. Main shutoff valves chained and padlocked with a brand new, heavy-duty lock. Brass, shiny, and stamped with LLHOA. My blood runs cold, then hot. This isn't a notice, this is an attack. The animals could die without water in this heat. She trespassed, and she's putting my livestock at risk. That's a new line crossed. I sprint for my barn, grab my biggest bolt cutters, haul back, snap the lock, rip off the chain, crank the wheel. Water rushes through, cattle start pushing in, thirst easing. The lock's still in my hand. Heavy, hateful. I know she'll be back. And now I can't sleep. I brew coffee, grab my big mag light, and tell Sam I'm sitting out by the valve for a while. She hands me her phone. Keep this with you. If you see anything, film first, act second. I settle by the oak tree, shrouded in darkness. The crickets are loud, but the night feels tense, stretched thin. It's after 2 in the morning when I catch the flicker of a flashlight. 2 figures sneak up to the valve, Karen and a goon. The guy's carrying an axe handle, She's got a chain and another lock. My heart's racing. I start filming. Karen hisses. He thinks he's above the law. Epoxy the threads this time. He won't cut it. That's enough. I stand, flashlight on full beam. Looking for something? I say, cold as stone. Karen yelps, shields her eyes. The goon raises his axe handle, taps the pipe threateningly. Stay back. This is official HOA business. Official business at 2 a.m. with an axe handle? You're tampering with my property. That's a crime. And I've got it all on video. If you don't leave right now, I'll call Deputy Cruz and have you both arrested for trespass, vandalism, and animal cruelty. I text Cruz a clip. His reply pings back instantly. Got it. Logging menacing with a tool and trespass. Keep filming. Karen hesitates. The goon shifts, weighing options. She finally barks. We're leaving. They scramble, tripping over the fence, vanishing into the dark. I'm left in the stillness, adrenaline burning off into cold resolve. This was war now. No more paperwork, no more polite notices. Karen is getting physical, and I have to cut off her power, not just her locks. The next day, Sam uploads everything to a secure cloud. But we both know cops might arrest her. But a woman like Karen? She'll bail out, lawyer up, and come back meaner. Proving she meant to hurt my cattle. That's tough. We need more than defense. We need offense. But Karen's next attack comes from the sky. I'm working on my tractor when I hear the buzz. A drone, white, sleek, hovering over my barn. Camera pointing right at me. For a week, it follows me everywhere. Fence line, breakfast window, spooks the cattle, spooks me. We call the sheriff. He says unless it's right in our faces, nothing he can do. Gray area. Karen loves gray areas. Sam tries reasoning with it, yells at it from the porch, but the drone just hovers, eye unblinking. I try to ignore it, but it drills into my brain. One afternoon, I've had enough. I'm in the corral, young fillies getting spooked by the drone. I grab my rope. Been roping since I was knee-high. You're not, Sam says, laughing. Oh, I am. I twirl the lariat, time to throw. 30 feet away, 40 feet up. The drone's holding steady, probably thinks it's safe. All right, folks, man versus machine. In this corner, 190 pounds of stubbornness, Mark the rancher. In the other, a flying piece of plastic representing the forces of beige and tyranny. Sam's recording. I let fly. The rope sails, open and perfect, over the drone. I yank. Down it comes, tumbling, landing in a soft patch of hay. The filly snorts in approval. Sam nearly collapses from laughter. I untangle the mess. Drone's busted, camera cracked. Taped underneath, a violation notice. Unapproved agricultural equipment. Tractor model 1987. Daily fine $100. She's using the drone to read serial numbers. The gall. But here's the kicker. A micro SD card pops out. I pick it up, hold it up for Sam. Her laughter stops. Is that? I think so. I think Karen just dropped her entire spy collection on our doorstep. That card is a goldmine. We plug it into Sam's laptop. Hours of footage. Not just of my ranch, but the whole neighborhood. Mr. Henderson's roses. Miller Kid's swing set. Dozens of pans across my barn, my back porch. Creepy, invasive. And then, buried in the footage, are clips of Karen in her living room, talking on the phone. The drone accidentally left running. Clear as day, she's talking about me, about the fake annexation map, about the plan to declare my property blight and foreclose so the land can revert to the Association for Redevelopment. Sam and I look at each other. That's not even legal, she says, voice low. She's forging documents. That's fraud. That's a conspiracy. We have what we need. It's time to stop playing defense. That night, we couldn't sleep. Not because of fear. Honestly, at that point, fear had kind of burned off and turned into this weird, giddy adrenaline. It was the feeling you get right before a storm breaks, when the air goes heavy and you know everything's about to change. Sam was pacing, working out ideas out loud, voice soft so as not to wake Duke, our old ranch mutt, who snores louder than a chainsaw. Me, I was just running through everything in my mind. Karen had escalated from notices to trespassing to outright sabotage and fraud. And now, by pure dumb luck, her own high-tech toy had given us all the evidence we'd ever need. But see, before we just marched down to the courthouse, we had one more thing to do. Get a little petty revenge. It sounds childish, but trust me, when you've been pushed and prodded and nearly bankrupted by a bully for this long, Sometimes you just want to poke the bear back. And we had a plan. That same night, under cover of darkness, Sam and I slipped along the fence line that separated my ranch from Lundy's Landing. Karen had posted a whole line of private property of Lundy's Landing HOA signs, every 10 feet, like a picket line. So, armed with a screwdriver and a little sense of humor, we reversed every single sign. Next morning, commuters and dog walkers alike got to see that the private property of Thomas Ranch now extended over Karen's perfect green kingdom. The guard shack was chaos. HOA board members out there with coffee mugs, scratching their heads. Then, the cones. Oh, the cones. Karen had staked out future site of estates at Lundy's Landing Phase 2, cones all along the public road bordering my field, like she was claiming land by traffic cone. Before sunrise, I rattled a feed bucket and rounded up the cows, herded them right up to the fence, and dragged every last cone over to my side. Morning drivers rolled by to see a herd of cows in a perfect orange cone circle, looking like they were waiting for a dance party. Sam, ever the digital prankster, found a submission portal for the HOA's newsletter. They took public submissions, big mistake. That month, the front page featured Mark Thomas's famous red barn chili, complete with a gorgeous photo of my stubborn old barn at sunset and my granddad's actual chili recipe. Turns out it was the most popular newsletter the HOA ever put out. And then there was Uncle Danny, my mom's brother, the retired prank king. He drove in from 3 towns over with a trunk full of soap flakes and a grin like a kid at Christmas. That new fountain Karen had installed at the neighborhood entrance? Next morning, it looked like it was hosting a rabid foam party. HOA volunteers were out there with buckets and garden hoses for hours, while folks honked and took pictures. It was beautiful, you know what I mean? But all that wasn't just for laughs. It was misdirection. While Karen and her little army scrambled around dealing with soapy fountains and prank signs, we were quietly putting our real counterattack together. The drone footage had revealed a new detail, the so-called revised annexation survey. Karen was using it to make her move in court, but Sam and I were certain that map was a fake. So, I made a call to Bob Jensen, a retired county surveyor who'd mapped every inch of this place before Lundy's Landing was even a rumor. Next sunrise, he rolls up, thermos in hand, a stack of ancient maps under his arm. He's got a face that looks like it's been carved from the same stone as this land. "Show me this map," he grunts. I spread out a printout from Karen's drone footage on his hood. He studies it, then whistles. Whoever did this tried real hard. Fonts, seals, even topo lines look good. But look here. See this survey mark? That's a GPS benchmark installed in 2018. This map claims to be from 2005. Impossible. Like finding a selfie on the Titanic. He lays out the real county map, side by side with the forgery. "This," he says, "is your proof." She's using modern data on an old map. That's fraud, plain and simple. He writes up a sworn affidavit, signs his name in letters as steady as old railroad tracks. I take pictures of everything. Official markers, map overlays, GPS readings, anything the county or a judge could ever want. We gather it all, stack it in a folder so thick it barely fits in my truck's glove box, and head down to the county office. The planning commission hears us out. The chairman is one of those men who never met a problem he didn't want to solve with a meeting. "This is compelling, Mr. Thomas. But since the HOA has already filed this as evidence in a pending dispute, you'll have to take it to court." I wanted to shake him. To court? We brought the smoking gun, and all they want to do is wait for paperwork? But that's the game, isn't it? Karen doesn't need to win. She just needs to drag things out, bleed me dry with legal bills, and make my life miserable until I give up. Sam and I leave, feeling lower than a snake in a rut. That night on the porch, I'm staring out at my barn, wondering how many more sleepless nights I can take. Sam brings me a beer, sits beside me, and just lets the silence stretch. "We're not done," she says. "We've been fighting her on her turf, by her rules. It's time to change the game." And she's right. There's one ace up my sleeve I haven't played. You see, before I came back to the ranch, I spent 20 years as a software architect. I helped design compliance systems, financial platforms used by HOAs all over the country, including, as luck would have it, Lundy's Landing. And buried deep in that code was a failsafe, an auditor's key. If triggered, it would freeze all outgoing payments, flag the HOA for a state-level forensic audit, and grind their operations to a halt. I log in, feeling my way through old credentials and back-end screens I helped build a lifetime ago. Sam watches over my shoulder. I upload the drone footage, the fake survey, Bob's affidavit, cross-check it all with the HOA's own budget reports, showing money being funneled into legal action against a property not even in the HOA. The system does the math, spits out warnings, flags Lundy's Landing for financial and governance irregularities. All it needs is one final click. Yes or no. My hands are shaking. Here goes nothing. I click yes. Just like that, the digital guillotine falls. Their accounts freeze. No more checks to lawyers, landscapers, pool cleaners. Next day, the neighborhood's a mess. Grass grows, garbage piles up, pools closed for maintenance. HOA board sends out frantic emails about temporary banking errors. But you can't bluff when the trash isn't picked up. Residents who didn't care about my barn start asking questions, loudly. Why are our dues paying to sue a rancher who isn't even in the HOA? Karen tries to put out fires with more fines, but she can't collect a dime. The payment system's locked. Sam, meanwhile, rallies the residents. It only takes 25% to force a recall vote under their own bylaws. In 48 hours, they get more than half. The special meeting is set. That night, the clubhouse is packed wall to wall. Karen and her cronies are at the front, pale and twitchy. Folks shout questions. Where's our money, Karen? Why are we paying your legal bills? She tries to stall, tries to bully, but the crowd's had enough. Ballots go out, ballots come in. And right as it's clear she's lost, Karen's goon snatches the ballot box, tries to run. Didn't count on Mrs. Gable, a sweet old lady with a past in roller derby, sticking out her foot. Down he goes. Ballots spill everywhere. Karen, in a panic, starts shoving fistfuls of ballots in her giant purse. But Sam's got her phone up, little red light on, recording every last desperate second. Karen on her hands and knees, caught red-handed. Sam edits the video that night. Quick, tight, clear as day. But instead of blasting it online, we hold on to it. Because fate hands us an even better opportunity. The state HOA summit is coming up. I get an invite, legacy pass from my platform building days. Usually, I'd ignore it. This time, it's our golden ticket. Sam and I roll up to the Capitol, looking out of place but determined. We wait for Q&A in a big session about navigating legal challenges. When my turn comes, I take the mic, name's Mark Thomas. I've got a case study. Before they can stop us, Sam plugs her laptop into the projector. The whole room, lawyers, managers, board members, gets to see the story, the fake survey, the money trail, the self-dealing, the ballot theft, the drone. When the video of Karen stealing ballots plays, the room gasps. A man in the front row stands up, State Attorney General's office, HOA Division. Mr. Thomas, we need to talk. We hand over everything. Drone footage, forged maps, financials, the whole rotten pile. The AG's team promises a fast, thorough investigation. And for the first time in a year, I breathe easy. But I know Karen. She's not the surrendering type. Sure enough, the next day, Deputy Cruz calls. Just a heads up, Mark. Warrant's out for Karen's arrest. Stay put. She's unpredictable. Instead of police at her house, we see her come barreling across the lawns in her golf cart, straight for my fence, axe handle in hand, hair wild, face redder than her pantsuit. She's lost it, yelling about how I ruined her, how she was cutting out the cancer of my ranch. I stand firm, Sam filming. No. Karen, you did this to yourself. You lied. You stole. You lost. Sirens close in. Cruz steps out, calm but authoritative. Drop the axe handle, Karen. She does. She sags, suddenly small. The deputies cuff her, read her rights. For the first time, I feel what justice really sounds like. She doesn't look at me again. They drive away, and the silence that settles over my land is the deepest I've ever known. Afterwards, everything starts to heal. The audit uncovers years of embezzlement. Karen's cronies jump ship. News crews show up. Rancher beats bully board. The HOA votes to dissolve itself, replaced by a voluntary committee. Beige is out. Community is in. Karen takes a plea, fraud, embezzlement, election tampering. The restitution goes to the neighborhood and to me. Every dollar goes right back into the place she hated most. The barn gets a new roof, stubbornly painted red. Best part? The judge tosses her lawsuit, declares the revised map a criminal forgery. My fence isn't a battlefield anymore. It's just a fence. Neighbors wander by, burgers and beer in hand, kids tearing up the field. Old Mr. Henderson, the rose guy, grins at my barn. Never liked that color, he admits, but now it's my favorite. But the phone keeps ringing, calls and emails from people all over, folks who've been bullied and fined and threatened by their own HOAs. Veterans hassled for flying a flag, grandparents cited for bird feeders. So Sam and I start something new, the Fair Fence Foundation. We put our fight to good use. Free guides, recall templates, lawyer volunteers, checklists for shining a light where bullies thrive in the dark. Life settles back into honest work. The only drone now is the cicadas at dusk. The only thing flying is Duke's dreams as he snores beside me. Sometimes a stranger drives by slow, points at the stubborn red barn, and grins. And you know what? That's all I ever wanted. A little peace, a good fence, and the right to keep what's mine, red paint, muddy boots, and all. Yeah, that happened. It's funny, after a year of living in a constant state of battle, with stress burrowed so deep into your bones you forget what easy breathing even feels like, peace almost takes some getting used to. The first morning after Karen was hauled off in handcuffs, I woke up to birds instead of email alerts. I poured coffee, let Duke out, and for a good 10 minutes, just stood on the porch, breathing in air that finally felt like mine again. For the first time in months, I wasn't waiting for another shoe to drop. But if I thought it was all over, well, life has a way of reminding you that old wounds sometimes take a while to close. Sure, Karen was out of the picture, and the HOA was toast, but the mess she left behind lingered. People from the neighborhood kept stopping by, sharing their own stories of fines, threats, and stress, stuff I'd never even heard about. Folks who'd been too afraid to speak up before now had courage and questions, and honestly, a little hope. One afternoon, I found myself sitting in the barn with Sam, sorting through piles of mail, letters from as far as Florida, Minnesota, even California, all from folks who'd read about what happened, or seen it on the local news, or heard from a cousin of a cousin. Every story was the same at its core, regular people just trying to live their lives, getting squeezed by a bully with a title and too much time on her hands. One guy wrote about getting cited for a flagpole. A widow in Arizona had been fined over improper garden decor. Turns out, her grandkids' painted rocks weren't architecturally harmonious. A Vietnam vet down in Texas was nearly foreclosed on for having his wheelchair ramp visible from the road. And all of them asked the same question. How do you fight back without losing your shirt? Where do you even start? It got me thinking. All those years in tech, I designed tools for organizations, but regular folks? They were left on their own, picking through bylaws and legalese, fighting Goliaths without even a slingshot. Sam said it plain. If we've got to map out of this mess, why not share it? So, we sat down and started hammering out what would become the Fair Fence Foundation. It started small, just a handful of templates and guides, how to file a records request, how to organize a recall, spotting fraud in your HOA. Sam reached out to a couple lawyers she'd met in the fight, and, wouldn't you know, it turns out there's more than a few attorneys out there who love sticking it to a bully for free, if you give him the chance. Our little website went live, word spread, and pretty soon, people were sending us their horror stories, asking for advice, sharing victories, small at first, but victories all the same. We posted everything we could, for free. No ads, no hidden fees. Just the playbook Karen had accidentally handed us, turned into something anybody could use. Meanwhile, life on the ranch finally felt like it could settle back into a rhythm. The cattle grazed. The chickens plotted their next mailbox heist. Sam and I spent our evenings on the porch, watching the sun sink behind that stubborn red barn, feeling a kind of gratitude you only get after weathering a storm. Sometimes, old Mr. Henderson would walk by, his dog in tow, wave and holler. Looking sharp, Thomas. And I'd grin every time. But you know, I'd be lying if I said I didn't keep one eye on the horizon. The Karen days of the world don't just vanish. They pop up in different forms, sometimes in a new subdivision down the road, sometimes at a zoning board meeting, sometimes in the fine print of a contract nobody reads. But I'm not the same guy I was before all this. Now, when I see those first warning signs, those little paper tyrannies, I know exactly what to do, and I know I'm not fighting alone. And let me tell you, there's a kind of poetic justice in knowing that everything Karen tried to tear down, my land, my peace, my family story, ended up not just surviving, but becoming a shield for other people too. Every time the foundation gets a message from someone who stopped a bully with our guide, I feel it, like another post hole sunk deep, another fence made strong. I think about Sam, too. All those nights when I felt like giving up, she was there, steady as the North Star, armed with a phone, a sharp tongue, and a faith in me I probably didn't deserve. Some people say there's no such thing as a hero in real life, but they've never watched a woman take on an HOA with nothing but Google, a camera, and pure stubborn grit. The seasons turned, and with every passing month, the land healed. The grass grew thicker where the cows had churned up mud during the worst of it. The barn stood prouder than ever, paint brighter somehow, like it knew it had earned its place. Even Duke, who'd started out as a stray pup the neighborhood kids found under a porch, seemed to swagger a little more, tail wagging high. We started hosting more neighbors, too. Barbecues out by the barn, games of horseshoes in the back field, music drifting through the twilight. Folks who'd once been just faces behind tidy hedges now laughed around our table, swapped stories, helped each other patch fences, literal and otherwise. We even got a few old-timers to share their own tales of HOA nonsense, each one wilder than the last. One night, as the fire pit died down and the stars came out in force, Sam leaned over and whispered, "Would you go through it all again, knowing how it ends?" I thought about that for a long minute. The stress, the fear, the money, the nights lying awake worrying about lawyers and livestock and losing everything. Then I looked around, at friends, at family, at a life made whole by weathering a storm. "Yeah," I said finally. "Yeah, I would. Maybe not with as much hair left on my head, but I'd do it all again." She laughed, squeezed my hand, and for the first time in a long time, I believed it. You know, they say every good fence makes good neighbors. But a fair fence, the kind built from shared sweat, hard-won lessons, and a little bit of rebellion, makes a community. And in the end, maybe that's what all the fighting was really for. So if you ever find yourself staring down a Karen of your own, feeling alone, outgunned, and outnumbered, don't give up. There's more of us than there are of them. And sometimes, all it takes to change everything is one stubborn red barn, a few good friends, and the guts to say not today. Now, if you'll excuse me, there's a sunrise to catch, a fence to walk, and a cup of coffee that isn't going to drink itself. And somewhere out there, maybe, is another stubborn soul just about to fight for their own little patch of the world. One that, with any luck, stays stubbornly, defiantly, beautifully red. Yeah, that's my story. And if you've stuck around this long, I want to hear yours. Drop a comment, tell me where you're watching from, or share your own Karen moment. Maybe together, we'll make a world with a few less bullies and a lot more red barns. There's a funny thing about storms. Sometimes you don't realize how tense you've been until the sky finally clears. I remember one morning a few weeks after everything had settled, I woke up and found myself just still. No emails to dread, no notices taped to the gate, no buzz of a drone overhead. The cows were grazing, the barn was still red, and the world, for once, felt like it wasn't waiting to pick a fight with me. It's a strange kind of relief, the sort you only get after running on empty for too long. Sam and I made it a habit to walk the fence line every evening, not because we were worried anymore, but because we could. We'd bring a thermos of coffee, sometimes Duke would tag along. Sometimes we'd just listen to the wind and the crickets and let the past wash off us, piece by piece. It was in those moments that I realized, sometimes surviving is its own kind of victory. Just holding your ground, refusing to give up the things that matter, that's enough. The Fair Fence Foundation started as a little side project, a way to help folks who felt just as lost as I did at the start. But it turned into a movement. We started getting invitations to speak at town halls, to join panels on local radio, to meet with state legislators who wanted to understand how HOAs could get so out of hand. Turns out, there's a whole army of regular folks out there who are sick of bullies hiding behind legal jargon and threatening letters. All they needed was a little know-how and a push to get started. I'll never forget the first community meeting we hosted outside the ranch. We'd rented the back room at a pizza place in town, figured maybe a dozen people would show up, mostly to get out of the house and snag a free slice. But the place was packed wall to wall. Young families, retirees, a couple of veterans with ball caps, even a city councilwoman. Some folks drove in from 3 counties over. They wanted to know what we'd learned, how to fight back, and maybe most importantly, how to stick together when the system was designed to wear them down. That meeting turned into 3, then 5, then a dozen. Before long, we had a network of folks across the county, neighbors who'd never talked before now swapping stories, sharing strategies, even watching each other's backs when a new notice went out. I saw old rivalries melt away, fences mended not just with wire, but with trust. For all the ugliness that Karen's war had brought, this sense of connection, felt like a kind of grace. It wasn't all sunshine and barbecue, though. Every so often, someone would call late at night, panicked and close to giving up. Sometimes the news from other places was heavy. Families still being pushed out, older folks intimidated, local papers too afraid of lawsuits to print the truth. Sam and I did what we could, but there were times it felt like trying to bail out a boat with a coffee mug. Still, little victories kept us going. A retired teacher sent us a postcard, said she'd used our template to get her illegal fines dismissed, then won her recall election. A single dad wrote that he'd built a wheelchair ramp for his son, and when the HOA came after him, his neighbors rallied and rewrote the rules. A group of renters started their own tenants committee after one of our workshops. 3 months later, their landlord finally started fixing things instead of just sending threats. Through it all, the ranch kept humming along. The rhythm of chores, the stubborn hope of planting new things, the stubbornness of that red barn, all of it held us steady. Duke got older, a little slower, but still ran the perimeter every morning, tail high, making sure the world was still safe for a stubborn ranch dog. Looking back, I sometimes wonder what would have happened if I'd just given in, if I'd painted the barn beige, sold out, moved to a quieter place. Maybe my life would have been easier. Maybe I'd have slept better for a while. But I wouldn't have known my own strength, wouldn't have met half the people who now felt like family, wouldn't have built something worth leaving behind. That's the thing about standing up for yourself. The first step is always the hardest, the one where you think you're alone. But step by step, day by day, you find out you're not. You find out that even the smallest stand can spark something bigger, a movement, a community, maybe even a bit of justice in a world that sorely needs it. Every so often, when things are quiet, Sam will nudge me and say, "You ever think Karen's watching the news from her little cell, seeing all this, wondering how it all slipped away?" I don't know. Maybe. But I do know that every fence mended, every neighbor helped, every barn that stays red in spite of all the odds, that's a kind of justice too. So here's to stubbornness. Here's to red barns, to good fences, to quiet mornings and loud victories, to neighbors who stand together, and to the bullies who remind us that nothing worth having ever comes easy. If you're listening, if you're fighting your own battle, know this, you're not alone. And the world is full of folks just waiting to stand with you, if you let them. As for me and Sam, well, we're still here. Still fixing fences. Still making chili. Still living proof that even the ugliest fight can turn into something good, if you stick together and refuse to back down. And if you ever find yourself driving past a stubbornly red barn in the middle of nowhere, you'll know, sometimes the right kind of stubborn really can change everything. Yeah, that's my story. And I hope, wherever you are, whoever you are, you get the ending you're fighting for too. And you know, even as life moved on, sunrises and sunsets blurring into seasons, I'd sometimes catch myself thinking about everything that unfolded out here, about all the wild twists and turns that started with one silly piece of paper taped to a gate. There are moments, late at night when the world's gone quiet and the only sound is the creak of the porch swing, when I look out over that moonlit pasture and it hits me just how much one person's stubbornness can ripple out into something bigger. Sam likes to say that when you stand your ground, really stand it, through all the threats and dirty tricks and late-night doubts, you end up changing more than just your own story. You become the reason someone else doesn't feel quite so alone. The Fair Fence Foundation became something I never expected. It wasn't just a website or a project. It was a lifeline for people who'd been bullied in silence for years. It was 100 hands reaching out, saying me too, and not this time, and let's fight together. We started getting emails from people we'd never met, folks in big cities and little towns, retirees and single parents, a high schooler who took on her neighborhood board when they tried to ban basketball hoops. The stories piled up like hay bales before a storm. Some funny, some infuriating, some that would make you want to weep and cheer at the same time. Every time I'd think maybe our work was done, that things had finally settled down, a new message would show up. They're threatening my grandma with foreclosure. Our HOA board is hiding the budget. Can you help us figure out what to do? And, more often than not, it wasn't just about rules or money. It was about dignity, about not letting someone with a little bit of power decide who gets to belong. We started organizing fence clinics, little pop-up workshops at libraries, school gyms, even the old VFW hall. We'd haul in stacks of handouts, a whiteboard, a box of cookies, and just talk to people. Half the time, folks just needed to know they had options, that someone else had walked this road and survived. Sam, ever the tech whiz, got us online too. She'd do live Q&As, record video explainers, even helped a couple of college kids set up a hotline. She'd finish a live stream, and then we'd sit out back, laptop on her knees, Duke's head in her lap, and go through the flood of messages that followed. Sometimes the problems were simple, a notice that didn't have legal teeth, a fee that could be appealed with the right form. Sometimes they were heartbreaking. Families at risk of losing everything, communities torn apart. We didn't win them all, but every time we helped someone push back, it felt like we were putting another stone in the wall. Looking back, I see now that the real gift wasn't winning my own fight. It was learning that you can turn your scars into stepping stones for someone else. There's a quiet kind of pride in knowing you helped make things just a little bit fairer, that you helped someone else find their voice when they thought they didn't have one. And through all of it, life on the ranch kept rolling on. The land healed. The fences held. The barn stayed red, stubborn as ever, paint touched up every spring by a new crop of volunteers, kids, neighbors, even folks from the other side of the old boundary. Where there used to be suspicion and silence, now there was laughter, the clang of a horseshoe hitting a stake, music drifting across the fields on a Saturday night. I guess the biggest lesson in all of it is this. You don't have to be a hero. You just have to show up, keep standing, and refuse to be moved by fear. Sometimes, it takes a storm to show you what your roots are made of. So if you're listening, sitting out there with your own storm clouds gathering, wondering if you've got what it takes, let me tell you, you do. And even if you feel alone, you're not. There's a fence out here with room for your story too. And maybe, just maybe, that's how real change starts. Not with lawsuits or headlines, but with a neighbor showing up at your fence with a plate of cookies, a stubborn old rancher refusing to repaint his barn, and the quiet knowledge that sometimes, the best way to beat a bully is simply to keep standing, keep helping, and never, ever, give up. So, here's to you. The fighters, the fence menders, the ones who refuse to back down. Here's to the barns that stay red, the fences that hold, and the sunrises that keep coming, no matter what yesterday brought. That's my story. And if you ever need a place to start, a guide to hold, or just a little hope, well, you know where to find me. Out here, somewhere between the barn and the fence, coffee in hand, waiting for the next stubborn soul who needs to hear, you're not alone. Not here. Not ever. And that's the truth. As the years went by, the story of the red barn, of Karen, of the fence line, of the little community that fought back, became almost a legend in these parts. Not in the way of fairy tales, but as a kind of cautionary truth, passed along at feed stores, barbershops, the checkout line at the co-op. Folks would stop by the ranch just to see the place where it all happened. Sometimes they'd bring a pie, sometimes a problem, but most times they just wanted to say, "Thanks for fighting back. You gave us courage to stand our ground too." And it's funny, sometimes courage is contagious. A couple of years after the dust settled, I got a letter from a woman in another state. She'd heard about the Fair Fence Foundation and wanted help because her HOA president had started making threats about her kid's wheelchair ramp. We worked with her, step by step, and before long her neighborhood had rallied behind her, helped her vote out the bully, rewrote their rules, and turned her street into a place where every kid could roll and ride and run free. A retired couple in a town hundreds of miles away wrote to say they'd used our recall petition template. Turns out, they'd spent half a year living in fear of fines over their little American flag on the porch. The day their new, fair board took office, they sent us a picture. 2 chairs, 1 faded flag, and the biggest grins I'd ever seen. I got to watch as other communities, little by little, started rewriting their stories. Sometimes it was just one small win. A garden gnome reinstated, a bird feeder returned, a neighbor's ugly fence painted whatever color they darn well pleased. Sometimes it was bigger, fraudsters caught, crooked boards ousted, a neighborhood transformed from suspicion and pettiness to something closer to family. Through it all, Sam kept us going. She built the Fair Fence Foundation into something more than we ever dreamed. We ended up with volunteers in every corner of the country, folks who'd once needed help now paying it forward. We even started a little podcast, sharing people's stories, tips, and the occasional recipe for chili. To our surprise, it took off. Turns out, people want to hear about ordinary folks winning against the odds. And I think the thing that stuck with me most wasn't the big wins or the headlines, but the quiet moments. An email at midnight from a single mom who'd won her first hearing, a thank you note from an old veteran who got to keep his flag, a picture of a barbecue in a neighborhood where nobody used to talk to each other. That, more than anything, made the whole fight worth it. Life here changed too, in ways I couldn't have imagined. The ranch became a living example of what community could be. Kids from all over came to learn how to mend fences, not just the kind that keep cows in, but the kind that bring people together. Our little block party committee ended up throwing some of the best shindigs the county's ever seen. Music, laughter, games, everyone pitching in. And every year, without fail, somebody tries to sneak a can of beige paint into the barn painting party as a joke. Every year, I chase him off, laughing as hard as anyone. As for me and Sam, well, we've found a rhythm that works. Part ranch life, part community work, part always ready for the next chapter. There are still hard days, still battles that pop up where you least expect them. But we're ready, and we're not alone. That's the best part. Knowing the fight, the one that started with a barn and a stubborn heart, didn't just save our home. It planted something bigger. So, if you're hearing this, wherever you are, whatever fence line you're staring down, know that you've got friends you haven't met yet, and more strength than you realize. And if you ever need a little nudge, or just a reminder that ordinary folks can do extraordinary things, well, come on by. There's always coffee on, always a story to share, and the barn, still red as ever, standing proof that some things are worth fighting for. That's the real legacy. Not just the land, not just the win, but the ripple that keeps moving outward, one neighbor at a time. So take care of your fences, take care of each other, and don't let anybody tell you that one voice, one stubborn stand, can't change the world. Because I've seen it, right here, under this wide Texas sky, and I believe it more now than ever. And if you're ever in the neighborhood, don't be a stranger. The porch light's on, the coffee's hot, and there's always room at the table for another friend. Yeah, that's how a war over a barn turned into something a whole lot bigger. And between you and me, I wouldn't trade a minute of it. Sometimes when the evenings are long and the air feels heavy with summer, Sam and I'll sit out on the porch with Duke snoring at our feet and watch the lightning bugs start their slow parade along the fence line. That old red barn glows warm in the fading light, as stubborn as the day my granddad first hammered its timbers together. And every once in a while, a car will slow out front, a stranger at the wheel giving a shy wave, sometimes pulling over just to ask if this is the barn, the one from the story. I never thought I'd be known for anything beyond raising good cattle and fixing things with baling wire. But life has a way of surprising you. Folks show up with questions, with stories of their own, sometimes just needing to be heard, sometimes hoping for a little advice, or a nudge in the right direction. It's become a sort of pilgrimage spot, this place, not because of the barn or the fence, but because people see themselves in the fight that happened here. Sam keeps saying the story isn't just ours anymore, and she's right. The Fair Fence Foundation has outgrown our kitchen table. Volunteers run chapters in a dozen states, putting on workshops, helping neighbors read their deeds, find their voice, and maybe even reclaim their own sense of home. We've seen block parties replace HOA meetings, newsletters full of family photos instead of fine print, neighborhood gardens spring up where there used to be nothing but rules. People who barely spoke for years now band together to paint over graffiti, clean up storm damage, or just sit on a curb sharing a laugh. We've even managed to convince a few lawmakers to take a hard look at HOA abuse. A couple of the state's stiffest codes have gotten rewritten. Nothing radical, just enough to give people a fighting chance, a little more daylight where there used to be shadows. I won't lie, it feels good to know our little war made ripples in places we never expected. Sometimes folks ask me if I ever miss the old days, before the fight. The peace, the quiet. I tell them the truth. There's a part of me that misses not having to worry, not having to look over my shoulder or double-check every envelope in the mail. But then I see a kid racing across the pasture with a kite, neighbors swapping stories over a barbecue, or a family hanging Christmas lights on a fence that used to divide them. I see the life that sprang up from all that stubbornness and struggle, and I know, deep down, it was worth every bruise, every sleepless night, every moment I doubted myself. The other night, after everyone went home, I stood by the barn, hand on the weathered boards, and thought about my granddad, my folks, everyone who ever poured their hopes into this land. They taught me that a good fence isn't just about keeping things in or out. It's about respect, boundaries, and the freedom to build a life your own way. I hope that's the lesson folks take with them when they leave, whether they fought their own battle or just came for the chili recipe. Now, when I hear Duke barking at the edge of the property, I don't get that old knot in my stomach anymore. Most days, it's just a kid coming to ask about a school project or a neighbor swinging by to return a borrowed tool. And every so often, when the crickets are loud and the sky is wide, I find myself grinning, grateful for all the mess and the beauty that came out of a fight nobody wanted but everyone needed. So, if you're still listening, still rooting for the underdog, remember, sometimes all it takes to change everything is a single stand, a little courage, and a whole lot of heart. And if you ever pass through this corner of the world, stop by. The barn's still red, the coffee's still strong, and the door's always open. You never know, your story might be the next one we tell out here by the fence. That's how I know, no matter what comes, the fight was never just about me. It was always about all of us, and the home we choose to build, together. You know, sometimes I look back and wonder how many people it actually took to change the story out here. Because for every late-night email, every workshop, every neighbor who finally stood up and said, enough, there were a dozen others quietly watching. Maybe afraid. Maybe just hoping someone else would make the first move. It's a funny thing about courage. You think it's something you've got to have all on your own, but the truth is, most days it's something you borrow from the folks around you, piece by piece, until you've got enough to take that next step. Sam says that's the real secret behind why things turned out the way they did. Not the big speeches, not the lawsuits, not even that fateful day with the kill switch and the drone. Just the simple, stubborn act of showing up, again and again, for each other. People get so used to being steamrolled that sometimes it takes a little bit of kindness, or just a good laugh shared over the fence, to remind them that there's more to life than living by someone else's rules. That's why, even now, when things have settled into a peaceful kind of normal, we keep the porch light on and the foundation humming along. Every month, we hear about a new community finding their footing, a family getting justice, a neighborhood reclaiming their voice. I've lost count of how many times someone's written just to say, "You gave us hope." Sometimes it's a postcard, sometimes a voice message that chokes up halfway through, sometimes a photo. Kids splashing in a pool that almost got closed, an old man waving from a porch where his flag still flies. I think about all the things we didn't lose, our land, our home, our peace, and about all the things we gained, new friends, a stronger community, and maybe most of all, a sense of purpose I never could have imagined when I was just a rancher with a stubborn streak and a red barn. There's a kind of joy in that, quiet but powerful, the sort that lasts even when the world gets loud again. And I'll tell you this, life still finds ways to surprise me. Sometimes it's a wedding in the barn, laughter echoing through rafters that almost saw their last day. Sometimes it's a group of kids planting sunflowers along the fence, each one in honor of a neighbor who stood tall. Sometimes it's just sitting with Sam, coffee in hand, watching the sun come up over the land we nearly lost, and knowing we did right by it, and by each other. If there's one thing I hope you take from this, it's that no one's fight is too small to matter, and no voice is ever wasted when it's raised for what's right. You don't need to know all the answers. You don't have to be the loudest, or the smartest, or the strongest. You just have to care enough to keep standing, to reach out, to try. Because the smallest act of defiance, the refusal to back down, to paint your barn the color you love, to show up for your neighbor, can spark something bigger than you ever dreamed. So wherever you are, if you're up against your own bully, your own unfair system, your own impossible odds, don't give up. Find your people, lean on them, lend your courage when you can, borrow it when you need to. And when the storm finally passes, don't forget to celebrate. Not just the big wins, but the little ones too. The barn's still standing, the fence still holds, and the story goes on. One neighbor, one victory, one sunrise at a time. Thanks for listening, friend. If you ever need a little help or a little hope, you know where to find us. Out here, the porch light's always on, and there's always a seat at the table for one more stubborn heart.